Hey guys, so this is going to be a bit of a different video than what I usually do. This video we're going to be tackling the latest state of the game article from Bungie and just sort of the buzz or quote unquote controversy that's been going around in the Destiny community as of late. So if you haven't been hearing, the recent State of the Game article that Bungie released has not been given or has been taken very likely or very kindly by the Destiny community, with many pointing out that it's very underwhelming, it's lackluster, it's not giving us what we really want, which is reassurance, and instead is creating uncertainty about the future of Destiny in terms of what's coming and what Bungie's future plans are for certain key game modes that really need a rework or just need some love. Looking at you, Gambit, looking at you, Crucible. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's start off with one of the key things that Bungie, start with a few of the good things. One, Destiny 2, or the team is showing that they do care about PvP, but unfortunately, due to how the higher ups are dealing with their resources, they aren't getting the necessary help or equipment they need to truly bring a true rework to Destiny 2's PvP, considering that, in probably the higher ups' eyes, PvP isn't as profitable as, we think it is, because to us, the gamers, PvP is basically like, a good, I'm gonna say 30, 35, maybe 40% of the game for us. Some of us it's like 50% of the game because some of us usually came to Destiny 2 to play PvP because we find some enjoyment out of playing PvP. It's just something unique about playing a sorcerer warlock that can shoot a kamehameha across the screen, who can shoot a giant bomb, a void bomb at another player, or just playing a titan that can turn himself into a human missile, or just being a hunter that can just make a golden revolver out of thin air. But nah, due to the fact that PvP is free to play, it's not exactly the most profitable for, the higher ups, the big corporate part of Bungie, to invest time and resources into it when they're not really getting much profit out of it. They would much rather use their resources towards probably, utilizing making raids more fun or making the new dungeons way more fun because people have to pay money for those dungeons. So if the dungeons aren't good, people aren't going to spend money on them. So we spend money and resources on making sure the team, or we have a dedicated team to making PvE content, so that way people will want to buy it. But I think Cool Guy, or was it True Vanguard who said it? Or I think Cool Guy said it best when you have, say, it's like a full course meal. Like the breadsticks are stale. People usually come for the breadsticks, but the breadsticks are stale, and the main entree is the PvE content. But what if the PvE content is not good? Like, what if the season is not that good, as we saw in previous seasons? Let's take a look at, I think which season was it? Was it season of? I think it was season of. Dang, I can't remember exactly, but it was one of the seasons in the past that was not really good. Or we can look at Season of Undying, really, like one of the very first seasons one of the first seasons that came out with Shadowkeep when it came free to play. Season of Undying was lackluster in several accounts. Weapons weren't necessarily the best. The activity was kind of it was alright, but that was really about it. But yeah, once you have the PvE content, which is lackluster, what else is there to do? Gambit, Gambit has been changed since freaking what was it, like freaking Beyond Light, and there was only minor changes with that. Crucible is just becoming a mesh pot of whatever, of different weapons running rampant, different metas going wild, and people just having to use the same thing, and it's just kind of like, okay. Like, there's nothing really there enticing, and sure, there may be like one or two weapons they come out with every now and then that really spices things up, but at the same time, it's only one or two weapons. Once you get those one or two weapons and the preferred roles you want, I mean, that's really all there is to it. And even with some of the weapons that have like monster tier perks, like freaking Out of Bounds, which has like, every single weapon perk you can get on an SMG, well, except for certain ones, but we get into that later. But yeah, that's kind of just how things are, right? PvP isn't necessarily as profitable to Bungie since it's free for all players, so they're not going to waste much resources on that. And we're also going to talk about Bungie or Destiny as a whole, because I really don't think that in the future Destiny is going to be their primary IP, or could stay as their primary IP forever, unless Marathon, flops, which I highly doubt they're going to let happen. Because let's be honest here, Bungie is changing. You know, Bungie's changing. It's making itself. It's expanding its priorities. It's expanding its franchise or expanding its IP, as we stated before. Marathon just got announced, and it's supposed to be a PvP extraction shooter. And for a PvP extraction shooter, they brought their PvP experts from Destiny 2 over there. You know, they brought some very prominent figures from the PvP Destiny 2 team and said, hey, we want you guys to work on our new IP, Marathon, a PvP extraction shooter that we've been working on that we really want to hit hard because, you know, think about it for a second. Sure, they got acquired by Sony for $2.6 billion, but let's be honest here. What would you rather do for that $2.6 billion if you're a big business or if you own a business? Would you A, pour all that $2.6 million into that single product that has been, that's been pretty good and, needs a little rework, but, people have been playing? Or do you want to invest all that money into making a new product, a brand new, fresh product that people have not used yet, have not played, and try to get some money off of that while at the same time, pouring some resources into the already established product that's already been making money for you, so that way you can have two IPs that can bring you money and profit from both sides? If you chose the first option, you really don't know how these big businesses work apparently. Big businesses like, EA and all these big companies, all these big gaming companies, or basically business in general, they're going to try to find as many ways to make big money in any way, shape, or form. Either it be having multiple IPs, multiple different products, getting established or buying different companies, like how Sony did with Bungie, and other teams using that money to make new products, kind of like how Destiny's or Bungie's doing right now. So essentially what you're getting is Destiny 2 or Bungie is basically saying, hey guys, in the future, Bungie or Destiny 2 may not really be our main IP anymore because, we're trying to expand and we're trying to, get more money or make different experiences for you guys. And, we've kind of seen this happen before because, we all know how Bungie is basically one of the people who put Halo on the map as one of the greatest gaming franchises in history. Literally selling out all the game stores on day one. Like, people were spawn camping that. Jesus Christ. But yeah, essentially, Bungie is saying this is our quote-unquote kind of Destiny 2 Halo moment, like what they did with Halo back in the day. Because, they're not just going to sell off Destiny 2. Heck no. That's one of their biggest gaming franchises right now, so they can't just throw away Destiny 2 and just say, oh, we'll just work on Marathon. Like, that's not working. That's bad profit right there. So what they're going to do is simply, we're just going to get a new IP and invest a lot of resources in that, try to do that because, again, they're trying to make as much money as possible and be as successful as a company as they can. And sure, some gaming companies have been successful off one games, but they haven't been as successful as games companies like EA, which basically has their foot in about everything. I'm talking racing games, shooting games, fighting games, all that. And back to the Halo conversation, Halo, in terms of what it was with Destiny or Bungie was working on it, that was just magical. What they did over there was great. But Bungie decided to sell Halo, and we all already know how Halo went. We don't need to beat a dead horse here, but yeah. Essentially, what they had to do was essentially they sold that franchise and they made another franchise in Destiny 2. And let's be honest, or not Destiny 2, Destiny, but let's be honest here. Destiny and Destiny 2 at launch, I'm sorry, lackluster, just bad eats. Like, there's just nothing there, bro. Like, it was just stale. It was just not fully fleshed out. There was problems. There was meta problems. There was just so much that the team needed to do for vanilla Destiny 1 and even vanilla Destiny 2 to truly bring passion to players. And it wasn't until they started, making those expansions like King's Fall, or, Crota's End for some people, like that, King's Fall, and then Forsaken in Destiny 2. Those two expansions literally brought life back to those games. They don't want that for Marathon. They don't want their new IP to flop on the beginning because, why would you play a new IP that's basically flopped? Because there's a possibility that some of those games, some of those franchises may not get reworked again, or those big franchises may not come back to life. Let's take a look at Anthem. Anthem was such a disaster that they literally cut ties on that game just because, they didn't want to risk pouring money into another IP that won't bring back people. Because again, bad game launches can affect the game's, street cred for a long time, even after they quote unquote fix it. Let's take No Man's Sky for instance. No Man's Sky, from what I hear, had a credible comeback, but there are still people who don't want to play No Man's Sky because of the launch. Hey, let's take a look at freaking games like Gotham Knights. I still, to this day, do not want to play Gotham Knights because I just did not forgive what they did with that game. They cut last gen console support, mid production to say we're doing this so we can, not focus on performance on next gen. And that game came out looking like trash. Like, it literally came out looking worse than what it did on last gen consoles. I mean, god dang. We don't need to go back to that freaking Batman Arkham Knight argument and just say how good that game looks compared to Gotham Knights, because good lord, it's appalling. But yeah, Bungie does not want Marathon to come out half-baked. They do not want to come out looking like freaking vanilla Destiny 1, because that would just be a disaster in its own right. Because, well, they just want to have a successful second IP, and having two successful IPs is better than having one. And essentially, it would make a lot of sense for them to pour resources into two IPs that are successful instead of just pouring every single resource they have into just that singular one. They're trying to play this as beneficial as to them as they can. So for that reason alone, Destiny 2 in the future is probably not going to remain as the most successful IP for Bungie. I mean, it's still going to be a successful one. Like, I'm not going to lie on that. Like, it's still going to be one of their best, but I just think that it's probably not going to be their most successful. I don't know. I mean, it just depends on how Marathon comes out. I mean, I'm just talking about, how Destiny could not be, but who knows? Maybe Marathon could be alright, but not better than Destiny. But again, we just need to wait and see how Marathon comes out and just see if Bungie can really deliver on the PvP extraction shooter like they want to. They have the best of Destiny 2's PvP team over there, so who knows? Maybe it will. But yeah, essentially that's the gist of it right there. Destiny 2 is changing, or Bungie is really changing, and Destiny 2 may be suffering because of that reason alone. Because they're not pouring every single resource into that, because again, they have Marathon on the way. They announced Marathon, and if they want Marathon to be a success, they got to pour a lot of resources into that. Because, you got to have the time, you got to have the manpower to make sure these games come out really good. Otherwise, you're going to have something like Anthem or Gotham Knights come out again. So, yeah, for that reason alone, that really shows that, Destiny 2 has plummeted in terms of quality. It's because mainly, they just don't have all the resources focused on Destiny 2. And let's talk about the kind of content that they are making. I will applaud Bungie on continuously being able to make adjustments to the game on a consistent basis, making meta changes, weapon reworks, making exotic changes, making story narrative improvements over the years. Like, Witch Queen proved that Bungie can truly take a more narrative approach to a Destiny 2 campaign, although Lightfall was a step back in several places. But Witch Queen truly did show that Destiny could, make some very good narratives. And that year alone, I feel like the narrative was pretty good, although some seasons were, worse than others. But hey, that worked. They proved that they could truly improve upon their craft, even with having resources in other places. And heck, we haven't even talked about the other elephant in the room, Matter. Their other new IP that they're making. Now, I am somewhat a believer that Matter is Marathon, but if the case that Marathon and Matter are not the same, and Matter is still in the works, that's 3 IPs that they're working on right now. That's Destiny, Marathon, and Matter, which is their new IP that they're keeping under wraps, if that's the case. And so with that, that's even more reason for why Bungie, quote-unquote, does not have the manpower for Destiny 2. Because, again, their priorities are to make as many successful IPs or to be as successful as they can. So having multiple IPs gives them higher chance of making more profit and being more successful in the gaming community or in the gaming industry. And it just makes sense because, companies like EA, again, they make a lot of money off having multiple different IPs that they own. I mean, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, we have freaking Need for Speed, you have freaking Star Wars Battlefront. all these different IPs that EA has is why they have so much money, because you have all these different gaming franchises bringing in the big bucks. Now, what am I going to say is that I do agree with many people in that we need an explanation for this, or Bungie needs to really come out and really explain what's going on in behind the curtain. Because if we don't, then that's just going to look bad for them, because without explanations and without truly giving us the knowledge of what's going on, we're really just assuming that they're just letting Destiny die, or that they don't care. And we know they care, is the thing. Like, we know they care about Destiny 2. We know they care about this franchise they've been working for 10 years. I mean, you don't work in a game franchise for 10 years and not care about it and just let it die. Like, that's not how it works. So essentially, what they need to do is just come out and say what's going on. Like, hey guys, like, this is what's going on behind the scenes. This is what we're working on, and this is some of the things that we have to do. I mean, they need to show more. And I don't think the state of the game that they just showed did that. I mean, they showed some of the things that they're going to be doing. You know, some of the things they're going to be doing and bringing to the game, but they're not showing what they're changing. They're not showing the improvements. They're just showing add-ons, and that's not what we need. What we need is reworks. What we need is changes. Like, what we need is, like, revamps. Like, revive some of the old game modes like Gambit. Like, Gambit can be fun. Like, I can have fun in Gambit despite what popular people say. Like, I can have some fun in Gambit, but it can only last for so long. Like guys, we need to change that. We need to bring some light to Gambit, because that's your third ritual game mode, your third core game mode. So if you're just gonna let one of your core game modes die, then that could add on as a domino effect. You could let PvP die, and then we'll be stuck with just Vanguard ops. And even Vanguard ops can be boring from time to time if you just play for long periods. Or you just say, oh, wait a minute, you're just pouring too much time into this. Like, you need to take a break. And I'm like, okay, I get taking it. There's a difference between getting a break and when something is truly boring. And I think this is not the case of it being too much time spent. And this is more of, you know, we just need better reworks to these different games. Or, dang it, not these games, to these different freaking game modes. But yeah, that's kind of what I want to talk about. This is basically my hot take on Bungie's, you know, part in the state of the game and their explanation, or trying to find the explanation behind the words they stated in the state of the game. And the fact they said they have multiple different teams working on, you know, PvP really states that, hey, there is no dedicated PvP team. Why is there no dedicated PvP team? Well, that dedicated PvP team is over at Marathon, working on their new IP, their PvP extraction shooter IP. So it makes sense why they would bring their, you know, their PvP team over there and, you know, let the other teams deal with their free-to-play game mode and just, you know, do whatever they can. And they're doing the best of their capabilities, but they just don't have the resources, or the higher-ups aren't giving them the resources they need to make this changes that we need. Because, well, Destiny 2 or PvP to them is not as profitable as, say, working on a raid, working on freaking secret missions, working on, you know, dungeons, working on all the new weapons, working on all the new seasons. That's what's bringing them the money. So you take that away, shoot, what do we have left? And Eververse. God dang, Eververse. Alright, I'm a firm believer that Eververse needs to be taken out of the game and just let the in-game cosmetics be, you know, collectibles from triumphs or from different activities, because Eververse is just a plague on Destiny 2's life at this point, because it's really just a cash grab. I mean, I only spend silver on few, and I mean a handful of items. Like, I can count on my finger, on my one hand, how many freaking items I bought with silver from Eververse, because, again, there's ever really a rare opportunity I do that. And even now, I've told myself I'm never going to buy anything from Eververse ever again for that reason, because it's just a waste of time, it's a waste of money, and I really don't need those cosmetics, because, again, when they introduced Transmog, even with that, they tried to make that a cash grab, and that was just upsetting on several levels, so they had to rework that and change that. But yeah, Transmog, since that got added to the game, I didn't have to worry about getting freaking ornaments from Eververse. I could just make my own ornaments, so I don't spend money on Eververse anymore. And only thing I ever go to Eververse for is for Bright Dust stuff. And honestly, the Bright Dust you can earn in game is kind of just sad at this point. I mean, I've had to save so much bright dust for over a year, and I was this past solstice, because solstice is going on as of this video. This past solstice, I was only able to get maybe 1, 2, or 3 different ornament sets for solstice with all the bright dust I had, because the bright dust that's asked of these freaking solstice gear is 6,000 bright dust. 6,000 bright dust. That's a lot, and I mean a lot of seasonal challenges. I don't even know if you can get 6,000 bright dust from completing all the seasonal challenges within a season. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But again, that's an entire season worth of grinding seasonal challenges and grinding out bounties for one set of armor ornaments. For one ornament set. Like, that's a lot. So, but hey, we're getting on to a rant here about monetization. I mean, that's a topic for a video in and of itself. But again, Bungie's resources are being put into different parts of Destiny that are profitable, and the other resources are going to their other IPs. And that's kind of the reason why we're seeing Destiny 2 in this sort of stagnant state. This state to where there isn't really much being changed. There aren't really any big changes that's going on season over season, mainly because, you know, they have other things they need to focus on, like Marathon and, you know, presumably Matter, if that's still its own separate IP. So yeah, that's kind of like my take on this whole event of Destiny 2 is stagnant, or my in defense of Bungie statement, mainly because Bungie is focused on all these different IPs, focused on trying to make Destiny 2 as profitable to them as possible, while still trying to make it as fun as possible for the players. And that's a lot. That's a lot for these game developers to handle. And sure, you can make the assumption that, oh, they could just hire more talent. I mean, that still doesn't change the fact that it takes time to make all this happen, to test all this, and to make sure it comes out cleanly without getting any bugs, while still trying to improve the game stability and make sure the game doesn't crash every 10 freaking minutes because the freaking engine is so slow, so old that, god dang. They've had the same engine for 10 years, but yet the game still runs pretty well. But yeah, that's kind of like my hot take on this whole situation. So yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section, and if you could, leave a like and subscribe. If you want to see more videos like this, post it down in the comments, and you know, let's get some likes on this video. And with that, I'll see you guys later. Peace.